All right, get this going. All right, hi, everyone. Welcome to the February Transportation Committee meeting. It's February 19th. We have a packed agenda today. We are going to be talking we're going to be hearing a presentation on better buses for Flatbush Ave by Riders Alliance. After that, we're going to hear from the MTA on an update on our Omni systems, and then we're going to have a committee discussion on DOT engagement for bike lanes in the district. And then finally, there's a spot for other business. Um, is Riders Alliance, are you guys ready to present? Okay, great. Um, I will hand it off to you. This is Riders Alliance to give a presentation on better buses for Flatbush Ave.
Hi everyone, sorry. I got a new computer and WebEx wasn't downloaded.
Oh, no worries.
Can everyone hear me? Okay.
Yes,
Hey. So are we ready to go right now?
we are. You are live.
Okay.
If you need to get your slides, if there are slides, or if you're just giving a talk, that's fine too.
Can I share my screen?
Yep,
Okay. Okay, so all right. So
great.
Caitlin, I'll let you kick it off.
I think you're muted.
Oops, rocky start. Hi,
Thank you.
I'm Caitlin Pierce. I'm Deputy Director at Riders Alliance, and I'm here with Jolise Race, Senior Organizer at Riders Alliance. And yeah, we've been in Flatbush for quite a while doing this organizing around the Flatbush Avenue Bus Improvement Project. And so thanks so much for letting us come and present what we've been doing. Um, you know, this first slide is just a bit of an overview of at least the most recent leg of some of the advocacy that we've been helping support on Flatbush Avenue. But, we've really been looking at the corridor as a priority project that was named initially under the Streets Master Plan by the last mayoral administration and now under Governor Adams. Mayor Adams, rather, was reaffirmed as a priority corridor, really in need of improvements for better buses. And so, Riders Alliance is a grassroots organization that organizes bus and subway riders. And Better Buses is one of the key campaigns we're focused on. And so we've been all along Flatbush from really the bridge all the way out to the end of the corridor by the beach, organizing different communities around the need for better buses, starting in 2022. And most recently, what we've been doing is a participatory action study to really that had two components to really better understand sort of the challenges people face as bus riders on Flatbush Avenue, as well as some of the perspectives of what people would like to see, both in terms of primarily bus riders, but also talking to small businesses on the corridor. And that'll be really what this presentation focuses on, is what we learned through doing that research. So we spent last summer doing that participatory action research in partnership with Pratt Center. And that was sort of a core part of some of the organizing work we were doing through those months. Although, and I'll let Jolie speak to this more, but she's really been doing much broader community organizing in terms of talking to bus riders and community orgs and different institutions along Flatbush for the last few years. So Jolise, if you don't mind going to the next slide. So, we really had an aim to partner with Pratt to do this study to look at, what exactly are the challenges and what do people want to see on Flatbush Avenue. These are a couple of photos from different community meetings we've held, as well as events. But we really partnered with Pratt, who is an expert in, community development, but also doing this type of participatory research study, and also formed a rider and expert advisory board, filled with bus riders and experts from the Flatbush area, different Flatbush communities that the corridor touches, including one was Dennis, who's on the call, who gave a lot of insights to help guide and shape the project, um, and have been holding community meetings and primarily canvassing days in the area to talk to bus riders. Through doing this research, we collected almost 2,000 surveys from bus riders looking at what they found the challenges were, and had 3 different business focus groups. So when we look at one of the first things that we found was sort of who was completing our survey, who's riding the bus on Flatbush Avenue. And that really shaped some of the challenges that were coming to the fore. But, similarly to the rest of the city, Flatbush Avenue primarily serves bus riders who identify as Black, women, and low-income riders, who live in and around the neighborhoods across Flatbush and across Brooklyn, but we'll show you some of the zips. But bus riders in this community are primarily um, uh, come from a lot of diverse backgrounds, but a big theme that kept coming out again was essential workers. So essential workers were all not just a large category of bus riders, but they're also the people most frequently riding the bus, and were most susceptible to the impact of some of the challenges. Other groups that we saw large representation from were students, seniors, and we saw some unique challenges among folks who identified as having a disability, which we'll get into as well. So from this, you can sort of see Flatbush. These were asking people, where do you live? And we also asked people where they were going to on the bus, and we saw that Flatbush really serves people um, along. Our research was really talking to people from within neighborhoods along the corridor, but that was also touching people from much further east, further west, and actually, in fact, across the borough. So what we really see is Flatbush acting like a spine that brings people not just north and south across the city, but as a connector. And we see that a lot in people's responses as they were thinking about the need for more local service, as well as the need for a lot of riders taking many transfers, and being sort of more doubly or even triply impacted by infrequent bus service, and long wait times.
Thanks, Caitlin. So the next couple slides are just kind of the key findings. So I'm going to go over some of the statistics that we found from the research. And like Caitlin said, we surveyed almost 2,000 folks, which was really significant. And nearly everyone that we talked to expressed that they had experienced significant consequences from bus delays. And like Caitlin also mentioned, healthcare workers and essential workers were a big percentage of who we surveyed. And I think something to really think about there is that 32%, but even more for essential workers, have lost pay, got reprimanded, or got fired from being late to work. And then, we have almost 50% who have paid for car service or taxis, which, especially in this economy and most of the people surveyed being low income, like that's really significant, having to shell out like 20, 30, 40, or maybe even $50 for an Uber or a cab just because you can't rely on the bus to get you somewhere on time. And 67% of folks talked about having long wait times in extreme weather, and this especially impacted riders with disabilities. which was 79% of folks with disabilities, and that demographic also expressed missing a lot of medical appointments too. Um, and then I think another important stat here is that 43% experienced emotional stress, which I think is not something that we often talk about when it comes to poor public transit, is just like it can really impact your overall mental health. And I think just adds good public transportation adds to just overall wellness of a community. And I think that's just something that we don't really think about a lot when we are thinking about improving public transit. And here are just a few more stats that I think are also really, really important when it comes to like thinking about the economy on Flatbush Avenue. So 85% of folks said that they would shop, dine, or use Flatbush or businesses on Flatbush Avenue if the bus was more reliable. And shopping, dining, and entertainment were the number one reasons that folks were taking the bus. 93% said that they would take the bus more often if it was faster and more reliable. And I think that really just shows that buses are really connecting people with their community and with their neighborhoods, and how poor bus service can really isolate people from their neighbors and the city, if they're, not likely to go out as often just because, they can't rely on the bus. And a really important stat is that, nearly 90% of the folks that we surveyed are supporting bus lanes and some street redesign on Flatbush. And most of the folks are also saying that they're more likely to vote for an elected official who says they're going to improve bus service. And we also did met with a few small businesses. And I think that double parking and enforcement were huge concerns with the small businesses that we talked to. And I think that, that's to be expected. We know we've all seen the double parking and stuff on Flatbush and the lack of enforcement. And I think they resoundingly also said that they sort of like they have a perspective of they want to be able to park in front of their own business on Flatbush, and I think that sort of served their perspective of like who is all coming to their business, just because while most of their employees and customers are getting to their business by public transportation, they still kind of like really sort of zeroed in on that they wanted to have that parking spot. Um, and I think that they also perceived just a lack of public engagement from the city with a lot of things that they express that they need, sort like from sanitation to rent increases. So I think that left a lot of skepticism for the bus lane project. And so far, the DOT has proposed a project for the northern part of the corridor. So DOT has segmented Flatbush Avenue into north, central, and south. And so for the northern part, which goes from downtown all the way to Empire Boulevard, they are proposing center running bus lanes, which is something that we can really, really get behind. Center running lanes are just more reliable and safer and efficient than just like the curbside bus lanes that we so often see.
Oh, sorry, Jolise, from Livingston to Grand Army.
The northern part, yeah, the northern part is where the center running lanes.
Right, and it would be from Livingston Ave to Grand Army.
Oh, okay, thanks. So buses on that part of the corridor are running 4 miles per hour, which is, just not acceptable at all. And when we're looking at the entire corridor, it's 69,000 daily bus riders. So this project would be really significant. And when DOT announces this, which we're expecting them to do so soon, we're going to be supporting the center running lanes and then really calling for them to announce something just as ambitious for the central and southern parts. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. And, we've been organizing, doing the community engagement, meeting with a lot of community organizations and elected officials. And so our next steps right now is we're working on a letter that to be signed by elected officials to send to the DOT, as well as a community stakeholder letter, which this is pretty much the end of the presentation. So happy to chat about anything that we went over, and would also love your support on the community letter. But yeah, I'll stop sharing and then we can sort of chat.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time to come speak with us. Okay, so we're going to move to open it up to questions. Just raise your hand, at least your virtual hand, and then I will call upon people. I see Steve Kahn. You can go ahead.
Just want to clarify something. Thanks for the presentation. I just want to clarify something regarding the small businesses. Is that because I didn't see it written in the presentation? Were you saying that the business owners generally are opposed to the notion of taking parking spots away in front of their businesses that are along Flatbush Avenue? And then my second question, it seems like your survey included individual businesses. And because our community board has at least two business improvement districts that I'm aware of along Flatbush Avenue, I'm wondering if there was any attempt to communicate to the broader business improvement districts as well. And another reason why I'm asking that is because I know the bid that's both Church Avenue and Flatbush Avenue has definitely had a lot of thoughts regarding the implementation of the Church Avenue bus lane for their businesses that were impacted by that. So just wanted to get clarity on those two things. Thank you.
So we did, oh, go ahead, Caitlin.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'll let Jolise take the second point. To the first point about the outlook of the businesses. We actually did the business part of the research more as focus groups, which I just think is important because we don't have any representative conclusions. We more wanted to understand how businesses, and we did them, one closer to Kings Plaza, one closer to Brooklyn College, and one further north. So we're more trying to understand how businesses were thinking about them. And one of the themes that kept coming up was that the small business owners, not the workers, but the owners, that we spoke to, tend to drive and be sort of like utilizing their car within the community throughout the day. And that really shaped their thinking about parking, and their concerns around any potential bus projects removing parking that would impact them personally. And I'll turn it over to Jolie to talk about the business outreach we did.
Yeah, so that was a lot of the business outreach that we did is we had those focus groups. And a few months ago we did a community event where we did a scavenger hunt along Flatbush Avenue, where a lot of our members were able to go to some businesses that were participating in our event, and sort of, get like a free flower or free chocolate, like from some of the businesses along the corridor, especially in the central part. So we have been also participating with businesses in that way. And we have had a few meetings with the business improvement districts. I don't know if we've met with the two that you are talking about, though. So if you have any connections with those, we can talk later, and maybe you can connect us.
Yep, that makes sense. So, Sean, correct me if I'm wrong. I think they merged into one, right?
The Church Avenue bid and the Flatbush Avenue bid are now the Church Flatbush Alliance, Community Alliance, but there is the other bid further down, Flatbush in the Junction, and that's the Flatbush Nostrand Junction bid. So Lauren Collins and Kenneth Umbonu are the executive directors respectively.
We can always help get you introductions if you don't have them already.
Okay, thank you.
Steve, were you going to jump in and say something?
Before Sean answered, I was gonna just clarify, but Sean answered as I to clarify that there were two different bids on Flatbush. So thanks, Sean.
Thank you. I before going to someone to raise their hand, I just want to. There's a comment in the chat that had to do with implementation, whether it was happening in 2026 or 2025. I think that must be referring to implementation of the north corridor. Could you just clarify that real quick, please?
Yeah, so this would just be for the northern part of the corridor. And we are expecting implementation this year in 2025. Hopefully after they announce the project, which should be soon. So probably during the summer would be ideal. They can't really like paint the bus lanes or the roads when it gets cold. So at least hopefully, by the fall.
Thank you. Next, I'm going to call Deborah Valentin.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I just have two questions. And the first one is, you mentioned the center running lanes. What does that entail of? And also, is that something that's common around the city?
So yeah, thanks for the question. So the center running lane would basically be so usually the bus lanes are by the curb on going either side of traffic, but the center running lanes would actually be in the middle of the street with traffic on either side of that bus lane in the center. And these are really great because the buses don't have to compete with traffic as much when they're in the center, running in the center of the street. Whereas if the bus is on like near the curb, the bus really has to, compete with traffic, cars that are double parked there. They have to really rely more on enforcement. Whereas if the lane is in the center, enforcement isn't necessarily needed as often because cars just don't, feel free enough to just like go into that part of the street. And there are a few other center running bus lanes in the city. There's one on Livingston. There's one on Merrick Boulevard in Queens. And there's another one in Manhattan, which the street is escaping me, but there are a few around the city.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Jeffrey?
Yeah, sort of along the lines of the previous question, what are you hearing from the city in terms of likelihood of doing something in the lower part? Like, do they seem open to it? And if they are, when do you think they would get started?
Yeah, so they have only proposed something for the northern part so far.
Okay.
And we're really happy about the center running lane. So we're really hoping that gets, announced soon and can get in as soon as possible. But we also know that the center part of Flatbush is where the most congestion is, and
Right.
also where like the most ridership is. So we really don't want to have to wait, several more years or even a couple more years before we can get that part of the corridor done. So Rita Joseph is championing this project, which is really great. So I think our hope is to wait for the announcement and then really start putting pressure on them to come out with something ambitious for that part of the corridor. So there's not necessarily a timeline from the city or DOT right now. I think that's really is going to take, our organizing power to really put pressure on them to come out with something sooner than later.
Good. Well, I will just opine that I think the community board should be helping and pushing on it. So, because I think, like you said, this seems to be the area where there's more ridership. It's like it's a little more badly needed. We don't have as much subway access, etc. So,
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. I just want to remind people, if you've asked a question and you don't have another one, please put down your raised hand. But if you do have another question, then keep it up so I know to call you. I will call on Liz.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for this report. I know, I saw a little bit earlier, helping to advise on it, but, I just was really, really shocked by kind of just the degree to which this was affecting people's lives. For me, this has often just been a frustrating commute and a tough delay when I've taken the B41, but to see so many job ramifications for like a third of people riding it was just really I don't know, I'm just like that really stood out to me. So I just wanted to field, kind of my support for, us as a community board, taking, signing on to this letter if we can. I think there's definitely more outreach we can continue to do to various groups like the various bids and make, help do some educational work and liaise with that. But, definitely think that supporting better transit for everyone, especially, poorer, more often, otherwise marginalized folks is really a key goal that we should be supporting.
Thank you, Liz.
Thanks, Liz.
Steve, you still have your hand up. Is that you left it up?
Nope, I have a new question.
Oh, there you go.
Uh, Thanks. I was also curious if there's been any attempt to quantify the change in commute times since congestion pricing was enacted, because obviously Flatbush Avenue, leads right into Manhattan Bridge. So I think there has been fewer cars on the road on Flatbush Avenue. I mean, my daily commute takes me down Flatbush Avenue by the park, and it's certainly been a noticeable um, reduction in the commute just on that stretch. I'd say, on a typical day, maybe maybe saves me 2 to 4 minutes versus before congestion pricing. So I'm just wondering in terms of the bus times and times waiting in traffic, if that's been analyzed since congestion pricing was introduced. Thanks.
Caitlin, you might be more knowledgeable about the statistics, but I know that we've had data from the buses coming from New Jersey. I think there's been a really big increase on public transportation there. And I don't know if we've had data from like specific bus routes from congestion pricing, although I'm really happy to hear you say that it is working. Caitlin, do you have any other like stats about CP?
No, we have some preliminary reports about bus times being better, but nothing on Flatbush. And hopefully we'll have more official data from MTA soon.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys answering people's questions. I'm just going to at least jump in with my own statement and question. I'm glad you guys came to present. I'd heard that this report was done. Honestly, I still hadn't read it yet, so I'm glad you guys have essentially summarized it for the community. I'm a very frequent bus rider for years and years. I've commuted via bus. It's a whole thing. I had different buses in the district, and I've experienced significant delays. I've also just talked to other bus riders at bus stops when a bus is not moving, it's stuck, or there's some other problems. It can be incredibly frustrating, and so I appreciate the fact that this is the first. I'm not that kind of tied in or knowledgeable, but this is the first that I know of where you guys specifically looked at bus riders. A lot of times, whenever we get into these conversations about, um, about the pros and cons of certain transportation projects, especially when it comes to buses and bus lanes, I feel like often I'm one of the very few who actually comes up and says, "Hey, I ride the bus all the time. This sucks." So I'm not surprised by the findings necessarily, but I'm encouraged that you guys took that approach to trying to understand this problem and study it, because up until then I've just had like feelings and vibes, just my own sense of whether things are good or bad. But this puts a bit more heft behind it. My question is, you mentioned it earlier, Liz mentioned it just now as well. What is you're talking about a community letter? Have you guys sent this to the community board? The question is like, what is it? I guess we'll see it if you do send it, but like, what does it say, just generally speaking, at a high level, just so we can kind of preview it?
Yeah, definitely. We will definitely send it right after this. I think it shows general support for the project and also recognizes that improvements need to be made throughout the entire corridor. It's very simple, straight to the point. And yeah, we'll send that along. And we, someone from Community Board 9 was also on our rider committee board for this project. So we're hoping to get a signature from Community Board 9, and we're reaching out to some of the other community boards as well. But yeah, definitely we'll send that. And I appreciate your comment as well. And I think the results that we found, we weren't necessarily surprised by any of it. Like, it was kind of everything that we knew already, just because we've been talking to bus riders, like, you know, way before just this project. So mixed with just who we've been talking to and also the data that DOT has given us, this sort of just like really reinforced everything that we knew and kind of gave us some like other solid evidence that we can use when we're talking to elected officials. And so it was really great working with Pratt Center to really just like kind of get that sort of official status of what we kind of already knew.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I had a process question for Sean, and then I will hand it over to my co-chair. Obviously, I don't know what this letter says yet. They'll send it over. I think I remember once, maybe last year, maybe it was Ed sent, I don't remember, but maybe out of a committee, he came out with a letter for the board to approve. I just don't remember what the process is. If it comes to us and we think we could support it, what's the process here? Does the transportation committee have to vote if we like it or not, or does it go to the full board? Like, how does that all work?
I think it because we're meeting remotely, the committees can't take any action, but at the board meeting, you could request board action on signing on to a letter or sending a letter out on behalf of the board. So it would be done, the action would be taken at the board meeting. In terms of previewing any templates, that could be sent along just to the co-chairs to preview, edit as you wished, or with the assistant of the district office, make appropriate edits and then bring it to the committee. You could also, to the full board. You can also just send it out to the full board so everybody has a chance to preview it. And I think that answers your question, yeah?
It does. Thank you. All right. I want to thank both of the presenters from Riders Alliance. I really appreciate you taking the time to come present to us. We are going to I'm going to hand this over to my co-chair, but for the folks from Riders Alliance, you are welcome to stay if you want, or you can have the rest of your night to yourselves. But thank you again.
Okay, thank you all so much for having us, and we'll send the letter around ASAP, so you can take a look at it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone. Good night.
Thank you.
All
Good
right,
night.
we're gonna move right into the next presentation, which will be done by Anthony Drummond from the MTA. Go ahead, Anthony.
Okie doke. Can you guys hear me? Thumbs up? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Just want to make sure testing out my mic. All right. Well, good evening, CB14 Transportation Committee. My name is Anthony Drummond with New York City Transit. I'm going to be presenting here for you guys on the reduced fare Omni. So I'm just, let me share the screen so you guys can see the presentation. All right. Okay, share. I also have to get used to having used WebEx in a while, so it's a little intuitive for me on the sharing. Okay, can you guys see the presentation?
Yep, it's up and clear.
It's up and clear. Okay. All right, let me minimize so I don't block. Okay. All right, let's start here. All right. So the reduced fare customers who are already using their credit card or mobile device for Omni. So just want to share this slide here just to let you know that if you do have that, like a credit card, debit card for it, that you won't actually get the physical Omni card in the mail because you already have that on your mobile device. So in this case, it's an either or, because for some people who do use the service, it's just very easy for them to like using your regular credit card, debit card on your device and tap it and just go. Others we know, especially with our seniors, would like to just have the actual physical card. That we give you guys a choice on that when using the card. Um, Currently, for those for the Omni card, they can receive in the mail or have at least received their reduced fare card in the mail. Um, we've been getting questions too as we've been presenting this information to various groups and boards about, what if you have a balance on your um, reduced fare Metro card? Can it transfer over to the Omni card? What we always do and tell people is who have that is whatever amount that you have on your card to spend it down as much as possible, because in that way it's easier to reflect on to your reduced fare Omni card and doesn't have such a high balance over. But if any case, if there's an issue or some concern relating to your account, we encourage everyone to contact the Easy Pay call center, which their call number is right here. And they'll be able, or you can go online to the easypaymetrocard.com. These two methods allows for the customers to be able to get whatever issues they have regarding their account or potential refund. All right, and for current OmniCard customers who get it via mail, so just showing here that if they have the expiration date, the reduced fare Metro card expires on this is going to be the last, just for FYI, reduced fare Metro card. So again, going back to what was mentioned to spend down that balance. So when you do receive the physical Omni card in the mail, um, that remaining balance also could be transferred through our CSC, our community service centers, our mobile van for use. All right, Omni Basics. All right, so this is the actual card for those who haven't seen it or use it. This is what the card looks like. And as with the circle here, it has an RF, reduced fare on the back to differentiate on the card. I know there's been a question about, for those with pictures, we don't currently have that. So this is what we're putting here on to the card. So, and as mentioned here, there's no photo on the card, but still required with the application to keep for verification purposes. All right, and then here, loading your Omni card. So you can, again, it's set up to where you can do automatic refills on your card using your credit or debit card by going to the omni.info. That's typically what people usually do if they don't want to feel like going to the actual vending machines, which we do have. Our vending machines accept cash. Or you can also visit participating retail locations. And at the end of the presentation, I'll do a little presentation on where I'll show you guys on how to do that. Or you can meet with the mobile sales van. All right. And this here just tells you about how the options and flexibility to use and refill your card. It auto allows for automatic reloads and replicates the same way of the Easy Pay program and then customize when your card reloads. So that just shows you that. Our Omni vending machines. Some of you may have seen us in our stations. They're very similar to how the MetroCard machines, a lot larger screen and text to bring higher contrast, also languages, and even audio assistance on these machines. And for those who would like to use the mobile sales van, they're particularly all over the city. I know there hasn't been too what we've been hearing it in certain areas. But we do have a website here to find the nearest location if that's a preferred method or option that you would like to use, or mta.info/mobile sales. And additionally, those mobile vans you can transfer over your MetroCard balance and provide a new Omni card as well. This is just a retail location, in case for those who want to find the nearest retail to purchase an Omni card. It's the same as if you go online, omni.info/retails-locations. It could be done similar, even though this image is Manhattan, very similar in Brooklyn in particular within Community Board 14. And the benefits of the Omni card. So we want to provide this one because I know there's also been questions about, if the Omni card will have 30 days. But this one here, we're showing as an example of where you earn free rides if you use it 12 times within 7 days, and you don't spend more than $17 within a 7-day period. So you can actually earn free rides after the 12 taps. It's pretty much the same as a 7-day unlimited ride pass. The new benefits with having an Omni account, you can track your progress towards earning free rides. Also, you can skip the vending machines and reload your card online, as we know that's a preferred method. Automatic refills. And then if it's ever lost or stolen, you can actually have your card frozen. So that is also an option with this. And for this one, we want to provide you with different information, websites here in case you need help with the Omni card. Obviously, we have the Omni website for info, omni.info, reduced fare Omni website. And you can also, too, if you prefer in person, to visit the customer service center, which is located at 3 Stone Street. And then we also have 15 customer service centers at our subway stations in all 5 boroughs. And even for Brooklyn, those is the closest. Atlantic Barclays Center is a place that you can also go. And then if, last but not least, if you want to prefer to call on the phone, we have our phone number below for people to reach out to. And as mentioned here, our customer service centers, as we call CSCs, they're open 24/7. For the Brooklyn one, Atlantic Barclays Center, but we also have one at Stillwell Avenue, Coney Island, and Myrtle Wyckoff, which serves the L&M for our Brooklyn location. In this slide here, you get more info again for websites and our call center, and that is it. Now, we'll go to questions. So as I was mentioning, I'll stop sharing, and what I'll do is show on the retail location. So let me share that with you guys. All right. First, let me exit out of that, and all right, and share the retail location. 1 minute to pull that up. And all right. Okay. And
Okay, thank you, Anthony, for that great presentation.
thank you. Almost
I have
one more.
okay, sorry.
One more. I'm clicking to share, and it's doing a little rounds because I just wanted to provide that for. Okay, there. I think. Okay, it's connecting. Okay, can you guys see this one? All right. So this is on the Omni info site. So if you were to go on that and just enter, and I'll.
Anthony, I think we're seeing just the WebEx,
Yeah.
not the actual window.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. Let me. All right.
And
But
if it's giving
There
you
we
a
go.
problem, okay. Otherwise, we can
There we
link it
go.
on. There we go.
All right. Here it is. Okay. It'll be real quick, just 1 minute. This is on our omni.info retail location site. If you were to go to that and need to find the location, and I'll enter my address because I'm also a CB14 resident. So 11226. Just hit that. Share. Nope. Here's my current location. Oh, okay. It does not have it for. Okay, there we go. It's so, and as it loads, so it just shows within at least my area with the 11226 zip code of actual locations where you can go to purchase the Omni card. That site is pretty simple. We try to ask if folks use that to use that location. So that is it. Thank you very much and be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you so much for that presentation.
Mhm.
I have some questions. I'll
Sure.
start first
All
because I'm
right.
still confused about the whole Omni experience, right? So this Omni card, is it gonna take the place of Metro cards?
In the future, that is the plan. As you know, the Metro card is being phased out.
Mhm.
And so the Omni card is going to be the new card for eventually all our transit riders who use the transit system, whether it be the subway or the buses. This will be the primary card. So that is it's working its way through phases. But this will be the new Metro card replacement.
So
And
as you
oh, I was
finished?
just going to add, and just before I finish, I would just want to introduce Katerina, who I'm sure some of you know. She's joining me too. So just in case if there's something I can't answer, my colleague Katerina's in. So thank you. Okay,
Okay.
sorry.
Thank you for answering that question.
hmm
Also, how are they going to address the issue? Because I'm a city employee, I have that transit check thingy, and how they're going to do? Are they going to be mailing out Omni cards to those participants, or how's that work?
It's a good question.
I can jump in for this
Okay,
one. That's a
Katerina.
great question.
Mhm.
We've had, if you have like an FSA type of account through your employer, there is a way where you can connect that directly to the Omni. So it would be the same sort of way where you kind of get refunded, or you have funds put aside at the beginning of the year through your employer. So you can connect that directly to Omni.
Okay, with the city Metro card thing, you pay into it every time you get paid. There's a deduction for it. So how does that work? Is it the same thing as if you start at the beginning of the month?
For that, it sounds like if you're getting a card directly from an employer, that would be something that they work out with us directly. And, I would check with the employer on how they're handling that in
Right,
that instance.
right.
Well, that's good to know.
Nah.
But thank you. I have a question from Nina Sabir.
Hi. So, currently, we have the option, well, I guess there are a couple of options. A lot of us like Deborah, I get a physical Metro card, prepaid through my job. However, I am actually, based on my age, eligible for the reduced fare senior rates. But since my job doesn't work that way, I just get the card. However, a lot of times, like today, either my card isn't with me for whatever reason, or I've used more than I have on that card. And so I've done the whatever swipe and pay, with my phone. Um, is that going to be tied in for those of us who are eligible for reduced rates, or would we still need an actual physical card of some sort?
A good question too. I think,
Yeah.
Katarina, I think,
Yeah,
yeah,
I can I mean, I would
yeah,
say definitely like we answered before, check in with your employer for how they're
right.
handling your sort of prepaid card, but if you qualify for the reduced fare program, so if you're over 65 or you have a qualifying disability, you might as well, you know, be enrolled. It's a half fare all the time. And it's one of our most beloved programs. So you do have to apply to be accepted. But now, once you apply, you get accepted. You can get accepted same day if you come into 3 Stone Street, and then you get the reduced fare Omni card, and you're good to go. So we'll drop some information on how folks can apply. But I would say, you know, apply, be enrolled. That way you have it as a backup, and you get, you know, the half fare discount for every ride that you take.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there any other questions? I don't see any more hands. I said, Felina, you have another question?
No, I just didn't get my hand down fast enough.
Oh, okay. So nobody has any questions?
Well, I was just going to mention because I do see this person DB in the chat. There's a question there. If I have a pre-tax monthly unlimited Metro card from my job, what will be the equivalent of that? Also, if I want to use my Omni card 3 times in one day, which is 3 rides, and 1 time over the next 3 days, would that be considered 4 swipes or 6? All right. Well, let's see. The first part of your question about the pre-tax monthly unlimited Metro card, what will be the equivalent of that? I think that's probably something of like a previous employee, because I actually used when I was with the city, I had the same thing, the unlimited monthly Metro. Um, but I don't know though what will be the equivalent of that when on. I don't think we have that yet. Correct me if I'm wrong, Katarina.
Yeah,
But
that's right.
yeah.
So we won't have actually an equivalent for the 30-day at this point on Omni. It's not to say that that might not, you know, happen at some point later on, but at this point, as Anthony mentioned before, what we have on Omni is the weekly fare capping. So we think that this is like really the best bang for your buck because you don't have to pay upfront for an unlimited benefit. You just pay for what you're using. So if you get to that 12th ride, every ride after that is free. If you don't, like let's say you get sick or your plans change for whatever reason, you haven't wasted the money on the unlimited rides that you can't take. So week to week, you can get the fare capping benefit, and that'll kind of take the place of the monthly unlimited as part of Omni.
Mhm. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Musa.
Thank you. My question was, how do you guys decide on expanding or adding actual vending machines in the station? So I saw there's the map, and you can pick up cards from a number of stores. The locations of the actual vending machines, there are fewer of them. I pulled up the map from the chat. How do you decide on where to roll those out, or are more going to be happening or being rolled out anywhere, just in the city, or like how did those decisions get made outside of partnering with individual businesses to offer them?
Yeah, that's a
Mm.
great question. It's 2 different things. So the vending machines in the system, they're going to be at every station. It's just a matter of us rolling it out. I don't know exactly kind of what the calculus is for where they get rolled out, but there is, you know, attention paid to all the kind of regular metrics and wanting to make sure that they're at hubs and kind of evenly spaced out as much as possible, but they will be at every station eventually. The retail network is something new that we're doing as part of Omni, in part because we recognize that some riders actually might not use the subway, right? So you might want to just refill your Omni card and not go into a station to use a vending machine. So this way, you know, you can go to the register at your CVS, you're checking out with your you know, your prescriptions, and you can also add some money to your Omni card. So that is a new program that we're expanding. We're trying to get more and more retail participants involved with that, just to be able to kind of, you know, meet people where they are in terms of how they're using the system.
Okay, thanks for that. We have some questions in the chat. Did we go over the one from Godfrey Thomas, which says
Yeah.
you
I can
went over
ask it.
that one?
Okay.
If you see it, or I can ask. For the website account, is that useful to make a website account if you don't have the physical Omni card? If you just have the mobile, if you're tapping your mobile phone, do you still get something from it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, for the website. Yeah.
Okay.
That's correct.
Cool.
I will also add the account is totally optional. In either
Mhm.
case, it's totally optional. But
Yep.
if you do want those benefits of being able to track and being able to freeze and all those other things, you know, definitely recommend syncing it to whatever method you're using.
Good to know. Thank you.
Mhm.
Now, DB, have a question in the chat. It says, my next question is, if I'm riding 3 times on a day, Monday, and 1 time on Tuesday, and 1 time on Wednesday, and 2 times on Thursday, 1 time on Friday, does this meet the weekly fare cap requirement, or is it only if you're riding every day?
Wow, that's a good question there too. I would think it would, but I think this is, and apologies if I don't have my camera just for some reason cut off, but
Yeah, sorry about
it,
that,
it, it
Anthony. I was trying to bring up your slide on this, just so we
yeah,
can drive the point home, but any 12 rides within the 7-day period. So it doesn't matter what day you're using them on,
right.
as long as it's 12 rides within the 7-day period. So let's say you start on a Tuesday, those 7 days.
Well, thank you for that. Any one thing I also I have to say, I was on social media a couple of nights ago, and I noticed that there was say an ad for if you bought a Omni card for like $14.95, and you would get to ride for 30 days free. So I wonder if, are you aware of the different scams that's going on with this new system?
No, this is the first time I'm actually hearing of this. I don't know, Katarina, have you heard of? Because
Yeah,
we don't have the
Deborah.
30-day.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one in particular. I know sometimes there's false ads that are placed in subway trains. I don't know if that's what you maybe are referring to, or maybe you noticed, but yeah, you can always take a photo of something like that and send it and report it, or you can also always send it to us, but there's a way you can report it, so you can, you know, make sure. But we regularly kind of scan for those things on the subway cars, so I'm sure it's been since taken down.
I saw it on, it was either Facebook or Instagram. And I was like, this, it sounds too good to be true. So I knew it was a scam.
Yeah, definitely sounds like a scam there for sure.
But if I can jump in on that, I do want to encourage people when they're seeing things like that, screenshot it, send an email to the community board office. I will forward it to the Wonder team, Katerina and Anthony. And welcome back into the closer fold, Anthony. Really glad to be in
Thank
closer
you.
touch with you.
Yeah.
And Katerina, thanks for, you know, like, gaining Anthony doesn't mean we're losing you, and I appreciate that as well. So thanks for the teamwork. But do bring those to our attention in real time, because we can get you the ways to report them directly. But I kind of want to know. I want to know what's up in the district and circulating around our community. to put a finger on the pulse of that. So please share it with the office and we'll share it as appropriate.
Okay, if I see it again, I will definitely share it. So any other questions, any concerns? Oh, with seeing no questions and no concerns, I would like to say thank you, Anthony, for coming and sharing your slides and everything with you. Also, Katarina, I thank you also. And I hope to see you in the future shortly.
Definitely. Certainly
Thank you.
will. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Sean, is there anything else you want to do, or should we
Yeah.
call it?
Deborah, I think we just have one more, technically two more subjects, but one substantive subject and then just another item in the agenda. I think
pardon me.
no worries. I think they stepped out, but okay, cool. I want to just invite them to leave if they want to leave. All right. Hi, everyone. All right. So the last official item, or like the media item on the agenda to discuss is about DOT engagement on Community Board 14's bike lane. I'm just going to try to set the stage for everyone, and then we're going to open it up for conversations that we can have and try to figure out where we're going with this. So for those who have been following along, in November of 2024, the DOT came and they gave a presentation on the bike lane network in Community District 14. You can find the presentation on the website as always. I think it was Lauren Martin and Sean Macias from the bicycle unit at DOT. So they gave a presentation giving us an update on some recent work that had been done. They gave a presentation on the paint only lanes or the bike network expansion that just had to do with paint and their rollout of that network. It was going to do an extension north-south and then also add some east-west connections. In the context of that presentation, they also discussed that they were considering potential protected bike lanes. I'll show you that in a second. So their presentation in 2024 was already like a year and a half after they had presented basically the same exact plan in 2023. They got a lot of flack for it in the last meeting. Now, what they've told us is that the paint network, bike network that they had presented on twice on, after 1 to 2 years of planning and feedback, is going forward. It's on the conveyor belt. It's happening this year. What they're considering and what they were hoping to potentially, let me see if I can get you the link. I'll send it as soon as I'm done speaking when I open it up. Or if someone else has the link to the Transportation Committee meeting, feel free to drop it in the chat. What they're considering doing is adding a couple protected bike lanes in the district, and potentially more. Who knows? But right now they're studying two specific ones. I'm just going to show you this for a second, and then revert back 1 second. Okay, so very briefly, I'm not giving a presentation because I'm not the DOT, but this is the expansion of the existing paint network that they're going to roll out this year, and then skip all that. And then they are considering potential protected bike lanes on Dorchester Road and on Ditmas Ave. It's a really complicated project. There are bus implications, and they might have to change the flow of certain streets or something like that. It's a whole thing. If you want to learn more, I invite everyone to go and obviously watch our November committee meeting. It was very insightful. They got a lot of feedback, and they had presented it in June of 2023. So you can get 2 sessions on it. So that's what they presented on. And during the Q&A, I forget exactly how it happened, but there was a conversation basically about community engagement, and they had mentioned something about like getting feedback from the community, and it led to a conversation around letters or resolutions or committee presentations. DOT ended up mentioning specifically like potentially putting together like what they called a working group to help advise them or give them feedback on, what makes sense in the district. And then, we moved on to other subjects and everybody got their questions out. The topic that we're discussing tonight is to have a conversation about how to engage the DOT for the bike network in the district that they're rolling out, including protected bike lanes. Now, you could do this a number of ways, but part of the point of all this is that we're going to open it up to get people's ideas. You can keep the system as it is, and a fairly reactive one in the sense that they have a plan, they come to us, they present, and then we give them feedback on it. Or you can hold listening sessions. We can have put together a working group. We could do it through a committee, through the board. We could just rely on community groups to do it, or something else, like whatever people want to throw out there. So that's the background. I think someone dropped a link to the presentation in case someone wants to take a look. Yes, they did. And that's kind of laying the land. I want to open it up. I'm going to prioritize hands raised to have this conversation. Hopefully we'll have, I don't know, like a 20-minute conversation. And if I see there's some consensus, we'll kind of work towards something. I'm just looking at hands. I see Liz, your hand is up.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to note just a few other things that have been kind of going on in parallel to this in terms of engagement and so forth. First, one of the reasons that DOT is looking at all in this district for bike lanes isn't just because, we want, I think, people biking deserve protected, safe bike lanes throughout the city. But because over 7 years ago in 2017, there was a safer cycling report that had identified Community District 14 as one of 12 districts citywide that are particularly dangerous to cyclists, but have very little infrastructure. We have a little bit of that bike lane on Ocean Parkway in our district, and we have the protected bike lane on Parkside, but nothing, further into Flatbush, nothing that kind of gets you to the park or gets you through to Manhattan or elsewhere in the city. And, in a lot of districts throughout the city, Brooklyn is kind of been the slowest for them to get this work done, it seems. I say that because every district outside of Brooklyn, as of a year and a half ago, had gotten new protected bike routes, not just like a bike route getting upgraded to protection like Parkside was, but like completely new routes to make more safety for people. And so I wanted to kind of start with that. I also just wanted to note that even before they started sharing this, there was, and the potential of protected bike lanes there in 2021, DOT presented to this community board a bike network that was only the painted routes. And there's been a little bit of iteration of them, but not a lot has changed that Musa mentioned they were talking about putting in this year and next year. And, I think we've seen at all of the meetings then to now that people have been asking for more, both bicyclists have been asking for more and for this to happen soon, and pedestrians. I just want to note that there has been a lot, I don't want to say it's necessarily I don't know exactly what a lot of engagement is, but this has been going on for a very long time, and people have been waiting, and people have been coming out to meetings repeatedly, not just in the last 2 years. Additionally, I know that DOT did some surveys and did an online they did in-person surveys based on some QR codes and such through our district. And I remember that around 2021, 2022, there was also an online portal of asking for bike lanes. I don't know where that is now. It was a DOT feedback. All I remember seeing was that basically every street had someone saying they wanted bike routes on it. And I say this not to be that there isn't more engagement on this. I am not a traffic engineer. I don't know the right place to put these bike lanes and so forth, but I just want to say there is a lot of demand and people have been showing up for a long time. And I just want to note that safety doesn't necessarily need to wait. So whatever process, we think is the best for this, I would really like to make sure that we're prioritizing putting these sorts of safety measures in, as soon as we can, particularly to getting the types of networks where people can be on protected lanes for most of their rides without going many miles out of the way. I will often go all the way to Ocean Parkway and then back so that I can be on more of a protected bike lane. But sometimes, especially in the neighborhood, that's 2+ miles out of the way. So just wanted to note that as kind of we discussed this, again, I'm not a traffic expert or an engagement expert, just that I know that this is something that has been going on a long time and a lot of people have been looking at it. So thanks.
Thanks, Liz. Catherine Blades.
Hi, this is I'm actually live in Community Board 17, but only by half a block. And so most of the bike lanes that I use are in Community Board 14, particularly around the southern part of Prospect Park. And I think that like the my biggest gripe of bike lanes is that the Parkside protected bike lane and all of the amazing protected bike lanes in Prospect Park just spit you out at the corner of Ocean Avenue, and there's no east-west south of Grand Army Plaza that actually exits the park. Even the one like further north at like Lincoln doesn't actually cross Flatbush Avenue, doesn't actually exit the park. And I bike with my kid through the park every single day. My husband bikes all the way to Manhattan, and like everything on the other side of the park is so well infrastructured at this point, and like we get all the way to almost home, and then like the bike lanes just end going east west. I think that it's really important to like cover the 2 or 3 blocks to connect Prospect Park with like Bedford Avenue or some of these other like thoroughfares. And I think Prospect Park is like the biking roundabout of Brooklyn, and there needs to be spokes going like in every direction out of Prospect Park. And I was just looking at this plan. Thanks for the link. And like the first east-west proposed lane is all the way down on Cortelyou Road, which is like significantly south of Prospect Park. So if Prospect Park is like our best biking infrastructure in Brooklyn, it needs to be connected much better, in my opinion. I also have other ideas, but I think we're supposed to be talking about process. So I got that out. And um,
Thank you. I
yeah,
appreciate it.
I like to be involved in whatever process.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Catherine. I appreciate that. I'm just going to call on Steve.
Uh, can we just back up? I'm a little confused about what the proposal is. Like, is this really about the proposed protected bike lanes along Dorchester and Ditmas? Is it what the community wants in terms of Ditmas? Because I think it was either make it one way or remove a whole lot of parking spots, if memory serves, or is it adding more protected bike lanes across the network? What's the scope of what we're
Yeah.
discussing here?
I think so they're considering adding the protected bike lanes on Ditmas and Dorchester. And out of that conversation, they talked about, community engagement, the working group, or something like that. They just kind of threw it out there. I wanted us to have a conversation around what it is to like. I wanted to take them up on that opportunity to see how can we kind of get engaged on the front end rather than the back end to inform their decisions when they are trying to plan some of these bike lanes in the neighborhood. So the question is, how do we want to stick with the current system, which could be fine, right? It could be whenever they come up with a plan, they come up with one and they present it to us, or do we want to do something different, like get a letter together or have a use the committee for a public listening session where DOT listens in while people say where do they want a bike lane or where they don't want a bike lane, stuff like that. That's kind of the scope of what we're discussing today. Does that answer your question, Steve?
I guess so. It's just like it feels very open ended, and obviously DOT has to some degree proposed a framework. So I think working within that framework would probably be the easiest in terms of seeing results. Though obviously, if the community has other ideas and they're good, and they can obviously be brought back to the DOT. I'm just I certainly think although maybe the process is slower than folks want, I think DOT has come to us with ideas in terms of where protected bike lanes could go and how the network can be modified. Um, and so that I think that is a good starting point. Obviously, if we think of something that's feasible that would be a good counter proposal. That's good to keep in mind. But I think from my standpoint, I think at the very least, the jumping off point should be what they've presented to us.
Sean, were you about to say something?
Did you say me, Musa?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna do this with some trepidation. I'm gonna put something in the chat. Just because I'm finding it difficult to engage with DOT, increasingly difficult to engage with DOT, and that is an email that I sent prior to the last meeting that brought them back to talk to us about the bike lanes. They're so reticent, and I don't know if it's a change in priority that this administration has with bike lanes versus the previous administration, if it is a borough commissioner thing. But I think that engaging with DOT on their terms along their policy process is fine, but it needs to be augmented with some additional engagement beyond DOT's regular old put it in the map portal and we'll get to you when we get to you. So I would elevate it to the elected officials, which, to the point above, does the elected officials cross over more than one community board? So that is one way to bridge the gap. And elevate it to the commissioner himself and try to leapfrog over the Brooklyn commissioner's office.
Thanks, Sean. I also appreciate you pushing on them.
I really don't speak to my colleagues like that very often. And I mean, what I put in writing was much tamer than what was coming out of my mouth.
All right, Nina?
So, I think one of the concerns that I have about just kind of handing it over and seeing what DOT spits out is that I really question how many of the people who are doing this actually ride their bicycles and actually live around here and see what those of us who do use bicycling as a means of transportation are seeing. And I think that Catherine's point was very well taken. So my own personal feeling is I would like to at least see some, whether it's some of us on the community board or, there are other people who've been involved in various ways in the community with street safety issues, being maybe more directly engaged in order to actually look at what it is that we see when we're on the streets and, not and making sure that we don't have these kinds of situations where we either are put in actually very dangerous streets that aren't just really well thought through, or get spit out somewhere where there's no connection. And I know of a bike lane, not in our district at all, but it literally just ends at Flatlands Ave, and it's like, oh my God, I go on the sidewalk. My life is worth a ticket. So, full disclosure, I go on the sidewalk there because there's no, you come off this bike lane and there's nothing. And I think that we need to really make sure that we don't have that kind of design. Like, oh, see, we gave you a bike lane here, but and I think that only those of us who actually are dealing with those bike lanes and using them to get from one place to another are going to see that kind of issue and see how it fits in with the rest of the structure. Sorry if I'm rambling.
Thank you, Nina. Let's see. Rujin?
Musa, I'll go next if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I mean, like, skip me and then after that.
Oh, I understand. Jeffrey.
Yeah, I think sort of along, I don't know, some of these lines. I feel like one thing we probably ought to be doing is make ourselves as responsive or even proactive as possible to DOT, because I get the sense that they are sometimes staffed, sometimes not. Like sometimes they have the resources to start making more progress on things, and sometimes they go times like long stretches of time without those resources. And if they have those resources and they're like, okay, we're able to like focus on this, make something happen. And the thing they make happen is making a slideshow or doing some outreach or something, and it doesn't like sustain until they actually can like put some concrete on the ground. That doesn't help us. So I am sort of thinking whatever we do to be communicative with DOT should either be some group that can respond very, very quickly, sort of as soon as they have something in their heads that they say, we're thinking about this, we can get back to them with, yeah, we can say on behalf of the community, this is desirable, or this is not a great plan, or, whatever it is, um, pretty quickly, without, waiting for surveys and waiting for the next meeting of the transportation committee and waiting for, processes that will take time and will sort of maybe run out their clock. Or we kind of go proactively and say, these are the things we want to see. Can we make these happen? I'm under the impression that some of the other community boards are proactively asking for, can we get bike lanes in these spots? And that might be helpful. And also, as I said in chat, I do think that one thing that might be helpful, going to Catherine's point, is doing something to coordinate with other nearby community boards and make sure that the network is an actual network, and we're sort of making requests, in a way where they're not saying, oh, well, we were doing the CB14 process now and the CB17 process, different process, because I don't think anyone in CB14 or CB17 actually wants to see, breaks at the community board boundaries. Sean, you're speaking, but you're muted, I think.
No, you're not. Okay, so thank you, Jeffrey. Rosine, do you want to go now or later?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. Sorry, I was in the middle of having my device die. Yeah, I just want to just couple of very brief things. Sean, I read what you wrote in the comments and like teared up because I know you, and for you to say that is like really says something to them. And as some of you know from these last meetings, I'm just a member of the community, and I've been coming to these meetings specifically about pedestrian and driving safety, everything on Dorchester Road. And it's not for the Department of Transportation's lack of action on it isn't for a lack of a problem. It's not for a lack of a will between the community board and the CB14 and our council member Joseph, and it's not for a lack of voice. We have a petition with over 500 people who have signed onto it, citing things like the bike lane that's not marked at all. There's no markings on Dorchester for anything, for road lanes, for anything. You just simply wouldn't see that in Park Slope. You just wouldn't see that elsewhere in the same city. And NYPD is really no longer issuing crash reports unless someone dies or is seriously injured. And Department of Transportation has told us that they're only looking at the number of crashes. So the other night, familiar scene, neighbor calls me, another crash at Dorchester and Marlboro. I walked up there and it was an e-bike had gotten hit by a car. And he didn't want to call the police. I didn't ask, and I didn't feel like pressing the issue, especially everything that's been going on with ICE. And he was hurt, but he went home. And he didn't want to call the police, and I didn't want to be someone who's like, let's call if he didn't want to. And that's the only metric that DOT is willing to look at. So something's clearly broken with the approach. If 500 people signing something saying Dorchester isn't safe is completely just unacknowledged. They treat us like we're just people with time on our hands who are just ignoring the fact that Dorchester specifically is incredibly unsafe for cars, pedestrians. They're saying that there's not a school nearby. We got out measuring tape and measured. There is. They said IS 62 was the closest one at 2,070 feet away. It's actually PS 139, as anyone with a measuring tape could know. That's well within the distance that they would need it to be a school safety zone. So, and finally, they've conducted now, I don't know if they're like just trying to troll us. They've conducted multiple traffic studies and said that there weren't enough school kids, and they've done it when school's not in session. They did a traffic study on Dorchester at Marlboro on February 22nd during a year ago at this point, during break, just as this week is during break. And then they denied a neighbor's request for for a stop sign at Westminster and said, we did a traffic study and there weren't enough people. We studied it in July. So there weren't enough school kids, teachers, parents dropping off their kids to the multiple schools around. So as I said, I'll keep it brief, but they are intentionally not doing this, not listening to us. They've promised these bike lanes, which would serve to make the road less of this careening ice skating pond that it is now, with cars just sliding in with nothing to slow them down or narrow it. And something has to change, and they just wouldn't treat other communities the way they're treating Flatbush. And I don't know, it's not that we've tried everything. We've been polite, we've been proactive, we've been persistent, and I don't know what the next step is, but it's not what we've been doing. If, again, 500 people have signed change.org/Dorchester to zero effect. It's just empty promises. It's really disgusting and dangerous, and they're waiting for one of us to die. I'm done.
Thank you. I think part of what I'm hearing so far, Steve, I see your hand is up. Maybe I'll call on Jason first and then Steve. There's a disconnect with the community, members of the public. There's a disconnect with our district office, and there's a disconnect with the between DOT and following up on like their own presentations to the board and stuff. And so all the more reason I think that we like consider what other step can or should we be taking to be a bit more proactive or engaged with them. That way, whenever they do come to roll over, present on something, one, they feel a bit more pressure to actually follow up, but also they say, we're presenting this in part because we've been informed by this method or that method of engagement. Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I didn't know it's late. I will admit I don't have a process suggestion. I'm really here to learn from all of you who've been organizing and who are community leaders, and I'm happy to participate in a process. I just want to say briefly, I live on Ditmas Ave, and I regularly bike as far as the West Village and elsewhere in the city. And there's basically nowhere I feel less safe than right on my block and approaching my home from on Ditmas. There's drivers who run red lights, drivers who drive around other drivers who are stopped at red lights to run red lights. They fail to yield in crosswalks. They go making left-right turns, blowing through red lights, tons of honking, and it's just feels tremendously unsafe. And I happy to speak from that perspective in whatever process may come together. I personally would support protected bike lanes. I'm also not an engineer, so I don't know, exactly what all the considerations are. But to only have meetings kind of when DOT eventually deigns to show up after years of planning doesn't quite seem right to me in terms of a way of engaging folks, especially those who may also have other priorities. And so just wanted to lend my voice to the concern about not having a solution.
Thanks, Jason. Steve and then Liz.
Yeah, I just think in terms of the community outreach and involvement, we should definitely make sure to include the neighborhood associations that are along these routes. I think the implementing the protected bike lane along Dorchester wouldn't be a very difficult lift. It's wide. There's the space to do it. But figuring out the eastbound route, I think, is more complicated. Regarding what gets done on Ditmas between taking away a lot of parking spaces or making it one way, which is also complicated a bit by the fact that what was done at Cortelio and Coney Island Avenue, like losing more rights of way, could impact some drivers that want to think that through. So I do think folks who live there, and I'm also thinking about, I remember when the city bike was brought to the neighborhood, and at the 11th hour we had all these homeowners or locals where the city bikes were being put in saying, this spot is problematic for X, Y, and Z reason, but it was too late to do anything about it. So I want to kind of be sensitive to our neighbors who, just to make sure folks aren't blindsided and can be part of the conversation. Thanks.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the hope, and that's a good idea. Liz.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly we want to make sure we're getting the word out and so forth. I do think that, largely it seems like the city bike docks have worked out okay. Largely other bike changes in the area have worked out okay. There's been a little bit of, things around the edges. And I know there's some city bike docks that, like the one near me, that's you back right out into Caden Avenue. So fun. I know I saw Sean's hand up and I was just like, I know there's a lot of like edges, things around the edges that we as a community board can really help support and fix on those things. I do think that there's a way, hopefully, I wonder if there's a way that we can maybe as a community board, say we'd like to see this work being happening. We'd like to see DOT working on this. We'd like to see them come up with a good way for this and engage the community to figure out what the best, again, we're not the experts in a lot of this, but we do have expertise on like how some of the unintended consequences could be. But like, we can, maybe there's a way to say, we'd like to see these, we'd like to see protected bike lanes going east-west here. We'd like to see a north-south connection to it so that people aren't stranded or having to go all the way to Ocean Parkway. Like maybe there's something in that. I mean, part of the reason I say this is because, I've kind of asked folks who've been involved in bike lane discussions with community boards in other places and have noted and have heard that some community boards in the past have requested DOT speed up this work, and that has helped them, feel the need to do it. And I think we all are hearing and have heard, at all of our meetings that people want to see this and that this is something that is a balance, that is rebalancing our streets a little to make sure that people aren't going to lose their lives. So, how that gets done is something that, we kind of have yet to see, since it is a process that keeps stopping. But I wonder if there's a way that we can say we'd like to see it and put pressure on DOT to respond to things instead of just hoping that they get their timeline together. Because, I do share all of Sean's concerns and so forth. That we have been asking for this for a while and it hasn't come. I wonder if they need something that's more of a public CB process. Like, I'm just not sure. Like, this is just what I, have gleaned.
So, Sean, I see your hand up. Let me just say one thing. Okay, so I'm trying to just kind of get a sense of what everyone is saying here. We want to be, the status quo doesn't feel like it works, right? We waited 1.5, 2 years before they are allegedly rolling out a bike network, for example, now. In some cases, some rollouts are too last minute, like what Steve's saying, so we all, I think, agree that more engagement on the front end is better. But we, at the same time, I think, don't want to add so much process that it like further delays. The point is that they get the information proactively and that it informs their decisions, so that whenever they do plan to present to us, they actually come in with ideally a better solution. So we don't want to delay, but we want them to be better informed, and we want to be able to kind of be involved on the front end. So if I'm thinking options, Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't know the full suite of options here, but option one could be us. I don't know if it would come from the committee or I assume it'd have to get signed on from the board, or if it's from the CB office, but it would be a letter to DOT. I'd want it from the board, maybe. That way we can support you, Sean, and some of the communications you've had. But to say, hey, we can recount the past delays and say, we just want you to engage us proactively and do it like without undue delay or something. We don't have to say take a speedy approach to it, but we don't want undue delay on these types of projects, but we want meaningful engagement, right? So that's just like, it's a process demand. It's like, be better and don't delay unnecessarily. Another option could be that we collect feedback from the community as a transportation committee, and then in a letter say, this is what we've heard. It's not specific. It's not like a demand for something on a specific street. It's just that this is literally what feedback we've received. That could be a survey from board members. It could be a public hearing session or something like that. And then I don't know if there's a third idea, but I don't think I heard one. Sean, oh, your hand's down now. Maybe you don't have it up. Does either of those ideas sound out of whack? Are people, I just need I don't want to spend too much more time on this because I'd like us to have some part of our night back, but like, are people immediately a no against any of those ideas? Hands are still
Lisa,
up.
if I can jump in and I'll pretend like my hand was still up. I think there's no reason to pick one or the other. It seems like a both and approach. And what I could do is prepare for the committee sort of timeline of, if we want to keep it bike lane focused, timeline of the, sort of a short history of bike lanes in Community District 14. And really to frame, I think, DOT considers CB14 a tough nut to crack sometimes, because when there has been pushback on some aspects of a plan, such as why are the north-south bike lanes terminating in a truck route, to Catherine's earlier point, why are these bike lanes terminating in the truck route with no then safe access forward onto the parade grounds? DOT framed that as the community board pushed back on the northwest bike lanes. So I think it would be, I'm happy to do a timeline and get it to the committee so that can go to elevate we've been through all of this. We've been here with these different proposals. It's time to push forward. And it could also be quickly get them back to I feel like the last presentation, was another presentation with loose ends. It was like, here are the new loose ends. And so get them back to tie them up with this additional sort of background sort of timeline at the disposal of the committee for that meeting.
Okay. So we'll maybe work towards a timeline and then potentially plan some next steps that will be work in a way that's consistent with that. Is that okay? That sound right?
Yeah, and maybe make it an April meeting if we can do it that quickly. Maybe make it in person, so action can be taken on the spot. Maybe make it in person and ensure that elected officials. We heard, Rita Joseph being mentioned as somebody who's championing the bus lanes. So I think if you get some elected officials behind a proposal, they're going to snap to it a little bit better.
Yeah, maybe that's a good idea. Okay, so I see. Let's see, I'm gonna give this topic maybe like 5 more minutes. I see Rogine and then Catherine, and then I'm gonna try to. I think we're moving towards a certain direction. I don't know that I hear a huge dissent from these ideas, but again, feel free to jump in if you do have a different idea. First, Rogine.
Sure, and just to piggyback on what Sean just said, I think that specifically DOT's conduct of conducting multiple traffic studies during school break and then reporting on the low number of school children present does raise this to the point of advancing this to city leadership or other governing body, like, I don't know, the public advocate, media, whomever. But I mean, that's misconduct pretty much. And then using that as if you had another city agency who was, measuring something that they knew was inaccurate and then using it to provide services or not, that's a big issue. So I think that that's something that we should just not lose sight on as we try to move this forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Catherine?
I just wanted to ask if there was any cross community board communication in process, because it does seem like we have a problem in a bike network of things just ending, and Community Board 14 is a really long and narrow community board. And so when we're talking about east-west bike lanes, I think, are they presenting this to Community Board 17? Is it similar? What about, Community Board 9? Is there a bigger governing body that's looking at it holistically?
Yeah, that's a good question. Cross-community board engagement is good. I'm just sharing my own personal take on this, so others feel free to disagree. Good for building any network, like bus networks, bike networks, just safety improvements across the borough. The reason I just want to hone in on what we discussed earlier about not risking delaying, not adding process such that delays the eventual rollout. And I am very certain, others might disagree, that if I had to loop in 9 and 17 and whoever's on the other side, then this isn't happening until 2029 or something like that. Just because you have to have meetings and engagement, forget the outcome, regardless of the outcome of however a network comes in. And then we're pulling community people and we're pulling across like dozens and dozens and dozens of blocks and organizations and stuff, risks getting DOT the feedback they need for the rollout they're doing this year. So I'm a bit hesitant about that, but I'm just one of many people. So others could disagree.
Musa, can I
Yeah.
just jump in?
Yep.
So I know that Transportation Alternatives has looked at this issue, and at one time another they looked very specifically at the issue of, you know, particularly CB, I think 14, 17, and then I think it's CB9 is on the other side of 17, so that you're doing that whole, you know, from Ocean Parkway across to roughly Utica Avenue. And there was a good bit of mapping that did take place, which tried to minimize breaks in continuity of networks, because I know, I mean, Catherine, you said you traverse 17 and 14. I go the opposite direction all the way through 17 and into CB9. So I think there's probably quite a bit of cross traffic, but I know that a lot of this mapping has been done. So I don't think that we need to reinvent the wheel, and I don't think that we need to spend huge amounts of time trying to key everybody up. I think what we need to do is put that in front of DOT and pin them on it, basically.
Okay. Thank you, Nina. I appreciate it. Okay, so I'm going to hand it off. Sean, your hand is up. If you can go
I'm
ahead.
gonna just put it in the chat.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think we have a general sense of next steps here, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, Sean is going to help prepare us with a general timeline on how we think we could potentially do either a letter or some community engagement through a meeting or some combination of it. And then at the next meeting, when we do schedule it, we'll email ahead of time, obviously, but we'll kind of send what we think the what is acceptable, at least to committee members, and what ways we might be able to put pressure on the DOT to follow through, given the delays over the years. I'm trying to be a good chair and hit our other business agenda item, just as I grow and try to be better. So I want to leave time for that, so I'm going to wrap up this subject. I want to thank everyone for their feedback. You will hear back from us soon, hopefully, and hopefully we'll see some good progress and some meaningful engagement with the community. Thank you, everyone, for the feedback. Now, the last item on our formal agenda is other business. Does anyone have any other business?
Are you calling on us, or should we jump in?
Oh, I will call on raise hands. Although shout out to the Sean for dropping youth conference for volunteers. I can give you the floor, Sean, if you want to make a pitch more actively. But if not, I will call on Liz. Does that say you want to share something?
Yeah, I was just speaking of, kind of DOT and getting questions back from them. There was an announcement, I think at the end of last year, about DOT getting $3.8 million for making hardened daylighting. I bring this up partially because thinking of, the comments Rasheen had made earlier about Dorchester Road, but just also that it's something that's been on my mind, and just wondering, when DOT originally made their we should do a lot more at intersections pitch. It was at Coney Island and Caton Avenue, the edge of our district. But we haven't necessarily seen a lot of changes in our district since then from me trying to pull what they have at open data for all of this. So I'm curious if there's anything we can find out about from DOT about plans that they have for daylighting and other intersection improvements in our area. And if they think that, the $3.8 million budget is enough to make sure that we're getting it in every area and they're not leaving our neighborhood behind. So just didn't know if there's anything we can do from that. I'm sure Sean has been in some discussion about questions like this before, but would just be something I'd be curious to hear back from, since there's been a lot of discussion in the news, but they haven't really brought any of that to our CB meetings or anything.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea. One of my pet obsessions for a while was trying to get the DOT to be receptive to community requests for daylighting. And especially when they announced they were going to daylight, I forget, 1,000 or a couple thousand intersections across the city. So I wanted them to take requests from us. Sean, remind me, I think the conversation kind of died when the DOT said we're not taking requests from the community pretty directly, which just kind of pissed me off. But so great suggestion. I would love to pick up my little pet project again. And at the risk of overwhelming the larger board with another letter, I would like us to consider a letter at least that says something to the effect of, and maybe we put this all into one, I have no idea, but to the effect of like, if the community has suggestions on daylighting, you should take them. Like at least incorporate that input. Or at least study the intersection. Do something with it rather than just say we're not taking the information. Especially if it's a suggestion to try to add daylighting, like around a school, or like there's the nursing home on what is that, by Caton, that I used to ride my bike across like all the time. There are just some like critical areas that I think would benefit from daylighting generally. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Anyone else have any other business they'd like to bring up? All right, I don't see, there's some lingering hands, but they might have been left up. Yeah, okay, cool. Well, thank you. This timing is great. It's 8:20, and I think we're supposed to end by 8:30. All right, do I have to take a vote to end, or can we just wrap this up, Sean? I forget.
You can just wrap it up.
You can just declare. All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate the conversation and all the questions. Thank you very much, and have a good night.
Good night. Great meeting. Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone.
Thank you.
Night all. Night.